Hey everybody, welcome back to the Overwatch podcast. It's May 21st, 2019, and today I wanted to talk about the difference between knowing the elements of something versus knowing the details of it. I wish I could think of two better words to use, but really, that's what I mean. So an element, like in matter, in the material universe, elements are the base material. So like hydrogen, gold, uranium, iron, these are all elements. In studying information about something, when you're trying to figure out a philosophy or how to view reality so that it makes sense in a totality, in a total sense, there's a difference between knowing the elemental information based on a vast amount of material that you can study and look at from all different sources, and knowing the details. I wanted to do this podcast because a few weeks ago, I think somebody left a comment on my YouTube channel, and I read it, and I replied, yeah, you're right, I might be wrong. And I forget what it was about exactly, but it was about a bit of detail that I added as I'm doing these podcasts. I will sometimes drift between core material and detailed material. And how do I best describe this? So, elementally, I can conclude from a whole bunch of source material that you can find on my website at overwatchproject.com. I can conclude things like reincarnation does happen. I can conclude that the core elements of like Gnostic philosophy was closer to matching the total material than other philosophies. I conclude these core elements. So there could be, it does seem logical that there would be a predatory, non-physical entity that humanity is more or less enslaved here or imprisoned here, or we're spirits trapped in matter. These are like core elements, but it doesn't give you like the details. Like if you're reading like Robert Monroe's Far Journeys, and you read his story about Lush and the someone that created this world as almost like a garden, so that the life forms here could produce something that this life form, this unknown someone wanted, called Lush, or like a spirit energy or something that they could farm from us, then that is a detail. See, that's a detailed story. If you're reading the book of Genesis, is a detailed account of creation according to the people that wrote it. That was their mythos. Now, of course, if you look at the vast majority of information, you quickly realize, the flood story appears in just about every myth on the planet. And, these other creation myths that are older than Genesis have more to them, more to the story, like the Sumerian creation myths, even some of the Greek ones. Their stories tend to make more sense because they're more detailed. They're not borrowed, see. And then you listen to people that try to justify that their religion has the one true bit of information, that everybody else is wrong, even though there are older stories than theirs that clearly, like Genesis, was a copy of a copy of a copy, a modification that kept happening through the creation myths. And further back you go, say, to the Vedic texts or to the Sumerian texts, you get a hugely different view of creation. And I'm sure they got it probably from somewhere else. But these are all details, so you can't really know anything except the core elements. Was there some kind of cataclysm that did cause a mass extinction event? Well, if you look at the work of Graham Hancock and others, sure. Could it have been some kind of giant flood or a meteor impact, or maybe even some form of superior, or the beings or gods, whatever, that made this planet, this universe perhaps, decide to reset life here occasionally? Sure. I'm just weary about the details, but I can't help but go there because there's too many unknowns, right? There's unknowns as I explore all this information. I have more questions than answers. And that's something I wanted to make clear. The elemental information is consistent with all the data. The detailed information may be consistent with all the data, but it may also be a product of my imagination. And there's a lot of people out there, a lot of people that claim they have all the answers, that they know everything. Occasionally I'll get somebody on my channel that'll bring up self-termination, the whole why can't people just commit suicide then thing. And my real answer to that is we don't know everything. And that certainly seems like a wrong thing to do. It's a negative thing toward yourself. It's self-destructive. Knowledge is... we don't have a lot of time as humans anyway, right? If you're already looking into this stuff, if you're looking into Gnostic philosophies and stuff like that, and you're already gone down this road, that road of knowledge, so that you can get enough of it, so that hopefully you don't have to reincarnate here again, and you can go somewhere else after your physical human body stops latching you here. You are certainly going to get better at knowing things. For example, sometimes people say, why don't you write a book? I've tried to write my thoughts down, but my thinking is so multitasking. I have so many trains of thought sometimes running at the same time to process information that it's very hard for me to organize them. But the real reason is because if I were to write an entire book, by the time I finish it, there would be about half the book that I would have to say I don't agree with it anymore, right? Because I'm constantly tweaking and modifying my philosophy of reality based on a whole bunch of data. If you just check out all the material I have on my website at overwatchproject.com, just the links section alone is overwhelming. The books section. If you follow my blog, you'll see all kinds of stuff on my Minds blog page that I post there all the time, things that catch my attention, people I look at. Two new people I've listened to recently were Dr. Heather Lynn. She wrote a book called Evil Archaeology. I just started reading it. It's pretty fascinating so far. And she's like a renegade archaeologist, sort of in the lines of Graham Hancock, but she's doing her own thing, looking at these ancient forces, demonic forces that may interact with humanity, even in today's modern world. This guy, Frank DeVita, he has been interviewed on Aeon Byte Gnostic Radio a few times. He has his own website, Voices of Angels, I think it is. And he is... some of the stuff he says is quite... resonates with me quite honestly. But other things that are very detail-oriented, do not, because I don't know if he's telling me the truth. A lot of this information that comes from people that seem to get it from somewhere else, I'm always kind of suspicious of. I didn't have my knowledge of philosophy of reality channeled to me. I don't have any that I know of. I don't communicate with any like spirit guides or anything like that. My view of reality comes from my massive amount of research guided by my intuition and my previous experiences as an investigator, where my investigative skills have gotten me a positive result. So I may have, there are many, many times where it seems like a series of synchronicities will lead me to a new source of material, like Dr. Heather Lynn or this guy, Frank DeVita. Both of them, I came to their info through a series of seemingly unlinked coincidences or synchronicity that brought me there. And I'm like, wow, look at that, and that happens to me all the time. So is it my inner self that guides me on this journey, or is it an external force, or is it a combination of the two? I have no idea. I don't know. But I just wanted to make it clear in this short podcast that that from time to time, I may say something and you may have an instinct out there to say, well, that's wrong, or you could look at it this way too, and it's different, and therefore I disagree with you, or whatever. Hey, I am open to that when it involves a detail, and if it's an elemental thing that you want to take on, like reincarnation, like some people may want to argue is for a good thing. And until somebody can properly explain to me learning through amnesia and all the other negative things about being born over and over again in a system of misaligned karma that you can never complete for so many reasons, partially because we're kept intentionally ignorant or nascent here. So we can never actually really learn anything. And so reincarnation here is not a good thing. It is a negative thing. It is possibly an addictive thing. I know that may sound weird, but from so many, looking at so many cases of near-death experiences and everything else, I do believe that it's possible that, and what a lot of these out-of-body experiences report, that it's possible that, once we're out of our bodies, we're sort of like... even if we didn't like it here, it's sort of like we just quit a video game and then you kind of go back to it. There's many games out there people play. If you're a gamer, you know what I'm talking about. Call of Duty, you rage quit, right? You swear it off and then later you go back to it. Why do you go back to it when you know it's going to just make you mad again, right? And it's the same thing with human life. Why would some people come back to this shithole? I don't know. I do know that... the best shot of getting out of here permanently or ascending to some kind of higher level where you don't have to ever return to the human form again is probably going to be found on the pathway that you earn through knowledge, and not through some kind of hokey religion or some kind of wacky ritual or anything like that. It's going to be an internal journey of knowledge. And if you look at it, throughout history, we have a whole bunch of religions out there, and you got your atheists and your atheisms out there and your agnostics. And these people fill the world with the bulk of everyone that has in the rainbow of philosophies for life. But the one philosophy, the one that's commonly referred to as a Gnostic-based philosophy, is the one thing that throughout history gets squashed when it ascends, right? Look at the Cathars. Look at any kind of Gnosticism from our past. It is their books are destroyed. They are censored in the past. They are killed, right? And look at what's going on today. You have all this internet censorship. They're trying to stifle freedom of thought, freedom of speech. You have people, when they rise too high up, that has started the discussion on a lot of this stuff in the modern day, like David Icke. They don't want him to even travel to certain countries anymore. Now, I don't necessarily see. The other thing is, I bring up a lot of people and I link to a lot of material on my site. Doesn't mean I necessarily agree with everything that they say, but if I think that they got a lot of good material, or they have they're in alignment with me and many of the things that they say jives with a lot of my research, you better believe that I'm on board with that. So people that rise up too high with this kind of knowledge, they get put down, they get censored, they get ridiculed. And it's only because it may spark someone to start doing their own research. No one can give you gnosis. Nobody can give you knowledge. Knowledge has to be something that you earn yourself. And until you're ready to receive it, or until you have the eyes to see, the ears to hear, as they say, you are going to be blind to it, right? So people are going to be blind to this stuff. But I wanted to clarify the difference. I will ponder details in my podcasts, and I have in the past. It does not mean that the details are correct. It doesn't even mean that next week I won't have a different detail or a different story to explain something. A lot of these ancient myths may contain a hell of a lot of truth, especially the ones that deal with a pantheon of creators or gods or aliens or whatever, however you want to think about them. These beings probably did work in a group, or there are many of them. It's not like there's a singular thing going on, and when they try to force it into a singularity of a godhead, it doesn't make any philosophical sense, right? You have a really tough time then explaining good and evil, or the seemingly odd battles that take place in the spiritual realm between deities and their enemies. And if they're supposed to be omnipotent, then how can you have an enemy, right? So I hope this makes sense, and just kind of rambling about this, but I wanted to put this out there that when you're listening to me, or when you're listening to anyone about this kind of material, or reading a book, and you find something in there that they have a story that just doesn't ring true, or this goes off course for you, it's not about the details, it's about the elements. Once you get the elements down, you can see what something's really made of, and then you can argue about the details. And it's okay to do that, because we really don't know a lot, and we really can't see a lot, because we are hampered by our bodies with 5 very limited senses that filter things, and a list of cognitive biases that is enormous. That, I mean, literally your own mind, your own ego, it is infected with like a parasite virus. I constantly have to battle my own cognitive dissonance, my own cognitive biases, to try to make sense of all this material in a clear way. And then when you do make sense of it, it is like far more bizarre than any science fiction thing that I have seen. Reality is stranger than fiction. So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoy this podcast, and it helps you out on your journey to discovery, information about reality. And I will talk to you guys later. Don't forget to check out my website, overwatchproject.com. It's kind of like my central place for everything, and you can find links to all my stuff there. Thanks a lot. Talk to you later. Have a good day. Bye.